All right, good afternoon. My name is Guy Telner. I'm the Director of Engineering for Cisco Defense Orchestrator. I'm in charge of the development, the delivery, the operations of this product. Here with me is Adam Bragg, System Engineer, part of the team, experienced network engineer, and we are going to tell you about Cisco Defense Orchestrator. What I'm going to cover is why Cisco Defense Orchestrator, what's our mission, what problem we're solving. I will focus on the launch that we're doing here at Cisco Live. Then I'll hand off to Adam. He will go through a brief architecture overview, and then we'll go into a product demo. And I want to invest most of the time on the demo to show you how things are actually working and how they make things simple for our customers. So with that, CDO started as an innovation program at Cisco, with the objective to address a big problem that we're seeing across the industry, especially talking to our customers, which is that network security today is becoming a big problem and a big burden on our customers. And there's two main problems that we're seeing. First, it's just that it's complex. The network has extended well beyond the walls. Before, our NetOps guys who had already to deal with everything with the network had just their firewalls. Suddenly they need to deal with their firewalls, their next-gen firewalls, capabilities within their data centers, outside of their data center. Now we're talking about cloud, remote sites. Of course, people are coming with their mobile devices, going to Starbucks, still connecting to the network, whether through VPN or without the VPN, coming in, coming out. And all of that requires us to add more and more technologies and more policies across the organization in order to address those. And this has been a big challenge because most of our customers don't even know how to tackle it and what do they have even in their environment. To add to that, there's the problem of inconsistency. So we have next-gen, we have first up stateful firewalls, then we have next-gen firewalls, which we have to have in our environment. You have UTM devices. Now we're adding to it cloud security as people go out of the environment. And of course, people are now migrating data from their prem to the cloud. So we need to make sure we have policies that address, security policies that address all of that. And each one of them has their own management console and their own UI and their own rules and the way they do it. And that creates not only inconsistencies, but also you inherit things that you don't really understand. I talked to a customer about a year and a half ago. They went through 3 acquisitions, and the IT manager came and said, look, I have all of this equipment and sites that came in. The IT manager, the previous one, has left. I don't know what I have, and I don't know how protected I am. Where are my problems?
1 second.
Sure.
Now I can hear you.
1, 2, 3. Okay.
Just pick up where you were.
So I don't know what I have, and frankly, I can't sleep at night. And that's a big problem. It's siloed, and if before it was 1, 5, 10 devices, we're talking about customers that have over 1,000 different devices and services that they need to apply those policies on. So with that, basically, what are the 2 main impacts? First, it's just cost. Making those changes, maintaining those networks is costly. It takes a lot of time. You need to wait until those downtime just to make any change. It requires highly trained staff, people who can really read and understand those configs and analyze them and know what's going on. And this complexity of multiple system leads to this inconsistency, errors, and of course, vulnerabilities. And that's what really scares me, frankly. It's the fact that people are vulnerable right now within their environments. We had a customer about 2 years ago that we worked with, and we talked to him, and he said, look, we actually went through an audit. We had an external company. They went through our configs. We should be good. We brought them into CDO, and they looked good, but one of them had allow any at the top. And yes, he thought he was okay, but you will always be breached by your weakest place, your weakest site. And if you don't have clear visibility, this is a big problem. And these are just numbers that we're seeing from analysts and from our customers too. The vast majority believe that not only it's become more complicated, but they have vulnerability and they even don't know what they are. So what if we could use the cloud to rethink on how to solve this entire solution? And that's where we came up with the idea for CDO. And basically, CDO is a policy orchestrator from the cloud that can access all of your devices, whether they're on the prem, your ASAs, whether they're your FTDs in your HQ, whether they're Meraki devices on your branches, or even cloud application on AWS, where you need your firewalls and security groups. Why not use the cloud for that? Where we can scale, we can talk to all of these places, and we can deploy a change at once by doing one click and deploy to all of them in a consistent way. Wouldn't that be good? So that's what CDO basically is all about, and it plays extremely well with the strategy of Cisco Security of having a consistent security policy and consistent visibility across all of my environment using our Cisco Threat Response, where we can get feeds from all of the products and actually not just analyze what a firewall is saying, but hey, this firewall is saying one thing, what is our email solution saying? What is AMP telling about the same threat? So we can understand the root cause, take an action, deploy it from one place at scale to all of my environments. So CDO, when we designed CDO, we had 3 guiding principles, and you'll see them during the demo. First is just to try to make the problem as simple as possible. It's not an easy one. There's a lot of devices. They all have their own languages and their own history with them. But how can we try to streamline it? And especially, as I said, create one policy. I want to block users from going to Skype in the middle of the night or something, and I just go to one place and deploy it, and it goes everywhere, whether they're in a Starbucks, whether in the enterprise, whether they're at home, logging through our VPNs. Efficient, how do we reduce time and reduce risk by doing it? Activities like upgrades of all your ASAs. We have customers with over 1,000 of them. It took them days just to get up to speed. Why not just click a button and deploy it all at scale? And make it, of course, effective by adding more security and reducing the complexity of that. Sorry. So, key capabilities of CDO that I want to highlight. First, it's resolve policy issues. As we bring more and more devices in, we analyze those policies. We try to find inconsistencies, problems within those policies, and we allow the user to take a decision fast and be able to optimize their environment. Secondly, as I said a few times, one security, one policy. Just write one policy and deploy it across your environment with ease. Third, it's helping you with operational activities and management, such as upgrades of the devices, patches, and so forth. Again, utilizing the cloud, all these devices are connected, these services are there. I can make sure that they're always up to date and at scale. And lastly is how do I also do what we call smarter configuration management. As an example is how do we track every change that was done? So we will know who did what change when, and then we can always roll back. So if someone made a change to a device or a service, we know what change it is, and we can roll back fast. You don't need to back up all your environments all the time. You can actually just go back in time and say, that change, roll it back. Yes?
So the orchestrator has the state for all the devices and to be able to roll back? I remember you saw something about scale being 10 devices or 1,000, and that's a pretty big difference there. So,
correct. So we have all of the config files, basically a snapshot.
Not state, right.
So of all of these devices.
Okay.
And you as a user will show it during the demo. You just go in and say, actually, I want to go back to that one, like 3, if you made like 9 changes a month or 9 changes a day, each one of them is sort of a snapshot that we keep, and you can just go back, which makes it very easy. And also you can track the reason why you made those changes. So you can, after the fact, wait a minute, why did Jimmy go in, made all these changes? No, that ticket was the wrong ticket. Let me go back in time. Answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay, so why using the cloud? I mentioned some of the advantages, but basically it's using the flexibility that the cloud enables us to access all of these environments. On the customer side, there's no maintenance. The devices that we have and we're selling as Cisco should be price performant. They should run all the time. Nobody wants to upgrade them or change them or touch them if they don't have to. But on the management side, on the reporting side, we should innovate all the time and provide value as we go along very fast. And of course, there's the low cost of ownership. My team deploys changes weekly. So every week, our customers are seeing incremental improvement. And they're working very closely with us so they can tell us, we like it, we don't like it, we actually think you should add this or that functionality. So our agility enables us to address our customer needs and also to address threats and security vulnerabilities as they appear. Again, this is the awesome usage of the cloud. Defense Orchestrator is available globally. We're focused in the US, and we have also offerings through AWS in Germany. So we address GDPR requirements. And basically, a customer can choose where do they want to store their data, whether in EMEA or in the US. So that's a brief overview on CDO and its mission. Let's talk a little bit about what we're launching here at Cisco Live. So CDO has been managing your stateful ASAs for a while, and today with CDO you can manage all of the ASAs on all hardware, starting from the 1000 series that we're just launching, all through the bigger box, the 9300 firewall. So that's on the ASAs. What we're adding now and we're launching at Cisco Live is the support for our FTDs, for our next-gen firewalls. So with the version 6.4 that just came out, this summer, CDO will be able to manage consistent policies across our FTDs, starting with the 2100, 5500 and below. And later on, we're adding the larger boxes. With that, we're also supporting Meraki. This is another launch that we're doing here. This summer, we're adding Meraki. So if you have your branches to your Meraki and in your data center you have your ASAs and so forth, or you're thinking about a hybrid environment, you just go into one place and deploy one policy. And we use the same terminology, and Adam will demonstrate how we're using like security groups that are known in the ASA and FTD, also on the Meraki side, to make that simple and streamlined to help create this consistency. And of course, virtual ASAs and FTDs are being supported with CDO. And so that's that. That's that part of the launch. On top of that, we are also launching the ability to manage FTD events in the cloud. So not only do configuration and device management, but you'll be able also to send your device, your connection events, your IPS events, your malware events to the cloud, and actually to get full visibility. It helps with two things. One, with understanding and analyzing your firewalls and your environment, but also it feeds into our CTR, into our threat response solution, by providing more intelligence. So then our breadth of investigation becomes even more efficient than before. One last thing before we go into the architecture and the demo is that we provide with CDO a built-in migration tool that enables our customers to migrate between their ASAs to FTDs. So if you have ASAs today in your environment, just get CDO, load them to your environment, And then as you gradually add next-gen firewall to your environment, you can take the same policies, the same objects, and so forth, and migrate them to your FTDs and enable our customers to be in this hybrid environment that most of them have today. So there's basically a simple process that you go on, you load your config or your device, you go through the migration, we create a template, you can use this template on one device, you can use them in many devices, and you deploy them in your organization.
Is this a different tool than the existing?
Migration tool?
Yeah.
Yeah, yes, it is. It's based on the same tool, so it's the same sort of back end, but the existing tool takes you from an ASA to an FMC to an on-prem management, and this adaptation takes you to CDO.
So this is going to replace FMC for the management of my many firepower devices?
So it depends on the use case.
Okay.
FMCs are on-prem manager, and it's got just great and awesome, especially analytics and reporting in it. And CDO is our cloud-based policy management. And as a customer and as a user, you need to make sure that you're choosing the right one for your organization. But the future where we're taking, the Cisco, where we're taking our customers, is actually towards that cloud. So over time, your FTDs will be managed all through the cloud.
Because I have customers, and when I was an operator, we would run 80 sites from our colo, where we had HA, FMC VMs, so it was private cloud. But ultimately, the long term then is that FMC is going to kind of go away. Is that what you're saying?
FMC is not going away. FMC is our current tool, but a lot of our investment that we're doing is in the cloud and enabling those capabilities and reporting into the cloud. So CDO is primarily a policy manager and a config manager for those devices.
Okay.
We're not replacing all of the cool reports and analytics that FMC has today.
So
That's
then
coming.
maybe this is something that you're going to address later, and then please, if you are, then just continue on. But what would how would I position this then to a customer who is run 80 sites, like I was saying, and they have FMC and they're comfortable and used to it? What's the advantage to go to the device orchestrator? Why do that?
So if a customer is happy and they have their devices and they're implemented their FMCs, stay with your FMCs, you're good there. CDO first manages more than just the FTDs. It addresses a sort of a different problem. It all depends on the customer itself, meaning you have the ASAs, you have the FTDs, you have Meraki, and more will be added over time.
Okay.
So if they have ASAs in their environment, if they have other devices, clearly CDO will be a solution for them. If it's customers that are new to this world and they haven't done this investment already, that would be a good timing to evaluate the right solution for them.
Just go with it. All right, that makes sense. And I think that's probably pretty common with larger sites or larger organizations. They're not necessarily all FTD boxes. You still have legacy sites and one-offs, acquisitions, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Good. Any more questions? Awesome. So actually with that, I will have Adam Bragg go through a quick CDO architecture, and then we'll go into the demo.
Awesome. Thanks, Guy. I can just use that. So my name's Adam Bragg. I'm systems engineer for Cisco Defense Orchestrator. So a question that you probably have in your mind and what customers generally have in their mind is when we talk about cloud and managing their security devices is how secure is the connection? How secure is my data? So I just have a few slides to talk about that. So first of all, we've built a multi-tenant infrastructure in the cloud to support thousands of customers with hundreds of thousands of devices. Every customer in our environment has their own database instance. Those are encrypted. They're encrypted at rest and encrypted at backup. And all the data as it traverses through CDO is always encrypted with AES-128 GCM encryption. We have two-factor authentication to log into CDO. We provide a two-factor authentication service. But if a customer already has a SAML 2.0 compliant authentication service like Duo, Okta, ADFS, anything that's SAML 2.0, we can hook into that instead. We've also built CDO on top of a REST API. So customers can utilize our REST API to get into CDO and utilize it using long-lived tokens. So they can do orchestration through their native tools that they might already have in their environment today. But this architecture also lends itself to multi-tenancy. So I, as a user, me as an MSP or an MSSP, can have one account that I log into CDO with, and I can see all my different customer environments, and I can flip between them. They're completely separate and segregated, but it gives me one place to go, one view. So we have MSPs that have stopped, having any connect sessions into their devices that they're managing, or they've stopped sharing insecure SSH credentials to their devices. Instead, they just have all their devices in CDO, all their users. They have complete visibility, control, and capabilities there. And I'll show you that in the demo. We've also built this thing called the Secure Device Connector. The Secure Device Connector solves the problem of how do we connect to devices that are potentially inside the data center and they don't have access to the network, or the administrators don't want them to have access to the network. So the SDC solves many problems. One, it controls the communication. So all the device communication to CDO doesn't go directly to CDO. It all passes through the Secure Device Connector. The Secure Device Connector can be deployed in the cloud. So for customers that just want to go completely cloud native, they can install their SDC in the cloud. CDO will manage it for them, and the communication to the devices all comes from the cloud down to the devices on the outside interfaces. But right now, 80% plus of our customers are going with an on-premise SDC, where they download, it's just a small virtual appliance, they download it into their environment. It takes like 4 minutes to set up once you download it, and that creates a TLS 1.2 tunnel back to CDO that's encrypted. And so everything from CDO's perspective happens from where the SDC is sitting in the environment. So customers can then start onboarding devices using RFC 1918 space, or they can manage devices across the internet. It doesn't matter. It gives them a lot of flexibility and a lot of capabilities in that fashion. The SDC is self-updating. So once the customer downloads it and installs it, they never need to touch it again. We utilize Docker containers on there, and we have controls and capabilities on the SDC where it's continually, every 4 hours it goes out and checks and say, hey, do I have an update? Do I need to reinstall myself? And if we've pushed an update out, it'll go grab it from Docker Hub, install it, switch it over, and then that Secure Device Connector has been updated with the new code. So it's an easy way. We didn't want customers to be burdened with some other item they need to manage in their environment. So really, it's a hands-off once they've downloaded and installed it. And last thing to note about that is we do not store the credentials of a customer's device inside of the CDO cloud. Those credentials are stored on the SDC. And when a customer logs in and onboards a device into CDO, we actually use the public key of the SDC to encrypt that traffic. So when it gets down to the SDC, that's local in the customer's hands. CDO has no access, no visibility. We've never stored it. We've never backed it up. So it's another capability. It's another comfort factor a lot for our customers to feel when they're moving to cloud management. They have a lot of control over the whole situation. All right, so let's move into a demo. Any questions on that?
Just to be clear, we're managing all our security appliances via the WAN interface.
If you use the cloud SDC,
Cloud SDC.
Most customers could use the on-premise SDC though.
Okay.
So you're managing it probably through your management interface.
So those CDO is completely cloud, and that's again where Cisco is going. That's not where devices are going to be receiving their policies, their connections.
Yes.
Okay. Yes, I'm correct. Or
I don't know.
yeah, no, that's okay. That's okay. That's okay. So just to be clear, the device orchestrator lives in the cloud, but that's not where my FTD boxes and Meraki MXs and all that stuff are receiving their policy.
Exactly.
So you're not just like going over the public internet. I know that can be secure.
Exactly.
But
So
by design,
it's all coming through that
Understood.
TLS connection we have from the SDC out to CDO, and then it's coming in from the inside. It could also come in from the outside. I mean, you could manage those devices using their outside interface.
Yeah,
if you want
and
to
we
as
do
well.
that now as like a one-off from time to time, but by design, that seems kind of weird, but it sounds like that's not the case.
Yeah, I mean, you can ride over your existing MPLS infrastructure and all
Yeah.
that. So it's as if you're sitting in your data center managing it from your data center,
Okay.
but you get to control it from the cloud.
And note that not all are devices in your environment. As we progress into cloud firewalls or Cisco Umbrella or other places that do have the same security policies, they're actually out there. So
Yeah, that's true.
It's
That's true. Right.
part of the scale.
So this is the CDO UI. I've already onboarded several devices. A couple things that I've noted from customers that we've talked to recently, or experts actually, not so much customers, but experts. They want to know, like, what do I need to do to prepare a device to come into CDO? And it's actually, we've designed CDO to be easy and quick for brownfield deployments. So I actually have a device here called Santa Clara that I'm going to onboard into CDO, just to kind of show you how easy it is to bring, this is an ASA, to bring it into CDO, and then to start seeing some information right away about that device. So literally I'm just putting in an IP address. I could change the port. We're using the same ports and protocol that the ASDM uses to communicate to this device. And then username and password. Best practices, most customers to put a username and password on these devices or use a TACACS username and password that is just for CDO. They'll onboard the device, and immediately once that device is onboarded, we start to do some analysis on it and do some algorithms. So I've brought in Santa Clara. Immediately from like a visibility, this is like a magic moment for people that are managing devices with SSH or ASTM one at a time. Once they start bringing devices in and they can start seeing things holistically across, like something basic, like let's look at my configuration file. I have one place where I can view all my configs from, and these are all backed up and stored in CDO. So people can throw away their rancid. They don't have to back up things weekly or monthly anymore. It's all automatically backed up in CDO, each version of every single configuration. We can also start seeing things like, let's do some policy optimization. What are my objects on my devices? We can immediately, without any effort on the user's part, can identify where they have unused objects, duplicate objects, or inconsistencies. So these unused objects are objects that are configured on the device, but they're not being referenced anywhere. So they could trip up an auditor. They could also trip up the user that's trying to administer that box at 3 in the morning, and they're going down a rat's nest because they're looking at an object that doesn't belong there and has no value. Being able to identify duplicates. Everybody has seen these in their environments, places where you have somebody that's gone in and configured the same thing repeatedly. So I have an email server object, an Exchange server object, and Exchange one. They're all the exact same thing. So let's not do this anymore. Let's just pick one to keep. I want to keep email server because it's really generic and it doesn't matter what my technology is behind there. I can resolve it, and what we're going to do is replace anywhere those other two objects show up. We're going to replace it with that one you want to keep, and then we're going to remove those objects off of the device. So these are long-term projects that many people have on their docket. CDO kind of takes care of it very quickly and gives them quick visibility. And then the last thing is being able to look across all your devices at one time and find inconsistencies. So some inconsistencies are kind of cosmetic, but some of them are real security problems. Like I have a block list, and it's supposed to be identical across all my devices. The CDO can immediately tell you, hey, there's actually 4 different versions of this block list. And we give you an easy button to fix it. So one thing we can do is make the assumption, or allow the user to make the assumption that if an IP address or an IP range is on one device, it belongs on all the devices. It probably got no IP address left behind, right? So let's go ahead and confirm it. And what we do is build an additive object group inside of CDO that gets applied to that device now. So now no longer do I have a block list across my environment that's inconsistent. We've just turned it into a shared object. So now moving forward, if I need to edit this, and let me get back to a different page, I'll show you where, if I'm looking at it holistically and I go look at my block list, we're going to see that my block list is actually being shared and consumed across 5 different devices. So now when I need to make an update, I just edit the list in one spot. I have one list to rule them all. I have one list to audit. I have one list to remove bogus values out of. But also, more importantly, when I have a new update I need to deploy, I have one list to add a value to.
You mean bind a value, right? Come on, guys. One ring. He said the one.
I'm not that much.
All alone here with Lord of the Rings. Jeez.
Tough crowd.
You serious?
So I can go ahead and save it.
We got it. I got it.
Want to give you the
Just not along for the
satisfaction of
joke.
it.
I really thought I was going to get instant applause, like a standing ovation. Anyway, please proceed. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
It's eternal.
So now, if it's 500 devices, doesn't matter. I make one change one time. To Guy's point, I become more efficient, way more efficient, and I have a more effective security policy now. So we also give some guardrails on there because I didn't just write those changes to the device. I just wrote it to the CDO database. So now when I go back to my devices and services page, I'll see where I have devices that are not in sync. And these are the devices that have changes pending on them to be pushed out. So I could choose one device at a time and do a preview and deploy it. So maybe my first 2 or 3 devices, I'm going to do a preview, I'm going to check it, I'm going to deploy it, I'm going to test it, see if there's any phone calls. And then once I'm done testing it in my test environment or my test cases, I'm able to then go ahead and just deploy it en masse to all the devices that are waiting for it. So these are the changes. We give a little script here, so if customers have change management programs, they need to paste a forward, what their plan forward is and what their plan back is. They can just copy and paste this, and they look like they know what they're doing. And then
That's a really cool feature. The number of times I've had to generate mops for
totally.
for changes, and
Yes.
even if you don't automate the change, just having that is fantastic.
Totally.
You can't search and replace line start for no.
That's exactly right. Here's all the commands forward. Here's all the commands backwards. Reverse them. Yeah.
Yes. And then I can just go ahead and apply those changes to the device. What's cool about CDO is regardless of what technology we're managing inside of CDO, whether it be a technology we manage today or something that we're dreaming up for the future, we have this facility inside of CDO called the Changelog that keeps track of all the changes that are being made not only to our database, but also the changes that are being pushed out to the devices. So I can see that at 5:03, I'm on Eastern time here still, I've written a device change to Fresno, and you can see who the user was. So if Fresno starts calling the help desk can look in here and be like, oh yeah, maybe you're not crazy, someone just pushed the change out. And they can see exactly, basically what the payload was that was just pushed out. So as an experienced administrator, you might be able to look at that and be like, oh yeah, you're in your 4589 9033, yeah, we just blocked you. A less experienced person might just be waving their hands up in the air and not know what to do, but we give them the tools of the visibility. They know that a change has happened, and they also have an easy button here to restore the configuration to what it just was. So I can go back in time. I could go back to the beginning of the year. I'm not going to be crazy though. I'm just probably going to revert to the previous known good configuration that I just had on that device. We can step through it and you can see exactly what the changes were between the configuration that's on the device right now and the configuration that was on the device and what we're about to push out to the device. So then I can easily just restore that configuration into CDO. It becomes the current config that CDO is managing, and then it's the exact same workflow. It's just do a preview and deploy and push that back up out there. So instead of having a fire drill every time you make a change and it breaks something, you can just roll back without any worry or concern. And we're not doing a replace. So a lot of times when you restore a config on a device, you're doing a copy and replace, and there's outages downtime. With this method, we're just doing a delta. So any traffic that was passing that was good, that was no problem, will maintain itself, and it's only that one problem child that is being remediated at that time.
Will you see those differences if you have an analyst that goes in through the CLI and passes this all together?
So every 10 minutes, we monitor the device. We do a check of the device and see if there's any out-of-band changes. If there are, we flag it in CDO and we show you exactly what's different between what's on the device and what's in CDO. then you can accept it. So you can say, yeah, I did that, or I know that, Guy did it and he knows what he's doing. I accept that change in, and it becomes a synced config inside of CDO. Or you can be like, Guy's on a bender again, he did the wrong thing. Let's push the old config back down. You can reject it and push the original config back down into the device.
Can you put smart checks in here as well? If this breaks when you do the change, go ahead and auto revert.
Yeah, so if I go to Los Angeles and do a preview and deploy, we've built in the capability, and this is a feature that I put in there because I'm a bad network administrator, is to be able to choose. I always did the reboot, reload in 5 command. So you can choose that same thing here. If you choose this option, we'll send a reload in 5 command in before we send the config. Once the config comes back, if we're still able to talk to the device, we'll cancel it. If it doesn't come back, then obviously that reload command is still in there, and that device will come back up in a few minutes.
Now, I don't know if any of the Cisco security platforms that you manage have revert type capabilities built in, but if they do, will you take advantage of that?
Oh,
rather than
totally.
reboot?
Yes, 100%.
Okay.
Yeah, so like in FTD, we utilize the FDM, and that has a revert capability, and we take complete advantage of that.
So rather than use the blunt hammer when you need it, but the more refined tool when it's available.
Totally, because there's APIs in there that we can manage all that and do all the calls. So when we orchestrate that pretty well.
Okay.
Yeah, our approach is always to embrace and extend the capabilities that the product has. So to your question before, right? If you want to go to the device and do something, we allow you. We'll just flag it, right? Same goes with other capabilities that the devices come with them. So.
And this is all role-based access control out of Active Directory?
No, with CDO, it's, well, if you integrate with your own SAML, then you could do that. With CDO, though, it's just a separate username and password. They log in, you have 2-factor authentication. But we have several customers, like several dozen customers that have integrated with their own, so they can manage their own. And most of them are in the back end as AD, so yeah, they can totally do that. All right.
And just further to the role-based, like some of these easy buttons can be dangerous.
Totally.
Is there a workflow there to?
No.
Okay.
There's no workflow. No, but we have a lot of visibility, so you can figure out who did what where and how to get out of it, but we don't give a workflow to do the checkbox along the way.
Approvals along the road?
Yeah, so we have
built in. Is that on the roadmap?
It's on the vision. It's not on the current exactly what we're doing next kind of thing. However, with our APIs, we can hook into like a ServiceNow or a Remedy and let that's already they've had 20 years experience on building workflows, right? Let that be the workflow manager for whatever customer, and then push those into CDO. So things like object updates and rule updates are very simple for us to do from an API perspective, and then push those to the device. So just kind of, instead of reinventing something that is already tried and true, just leverage what already exists and use CDO as the agent that pushes those out.
Gotcha. That makes sense.
Do you have a Meraki in here by chance?
I do have a Meraki.
Yeah, I'd like to see if there's any possibility to show the diff. Because I understand it on the CLI, right? But you mentioned the idea that you would show if someone manually made a change, what that would look like inside of your system here. Because I mean that's got to be a bit more difficult than like FTD or an ASA or whatever, because CLI based.
I don't have any that are out of sync.
I figured you didn't, but
And I'm trying to think if I have an environment that might have one.
I didn't want. Don't.
If I wasn't on
the
TV,
conversation.
if I wasn't on TV, I'd probably go do
You
it.
would go do it right now. Yes, fair enough.
All right, so another capability that customers just like glom onto CDO for, and it's kind of outside the policy management, but it's very much inside of security, is image upgrades. So with CDO, you get immediate visibility into what versions of code you have running on your boxes. So I just brought in that Santa Clara device. It's running 9.52 code. Maybe there's a reason why I don't want to be on that version of code. I can just go ahead and filter on all those devices. And instead of logging into Cisco and getting the code and trying to figure out which version you can upgrade to, instead of setting up a TFTP server, an SCP server, just let CDO take care of it for you. We have a repository of all the versions of code that you can upgrade to from the version that you're on. So you can just go choose that version. You can also choose an ASDM version to upgrade to, or if you don't use ASDM, you can skip that. And then you can choose to just stage that code out on the box. So if you're like running over DSL lines or something and the connectivity is a little spotty, you might just want to stage the image and then come back later and do the entire upgrade. Or you can tell CDO, just go ahead and do the entire upgrade right now. And we can also schedule these. So this was a feature request that many customers came back with after they started using our upgrade process. They loved it, but they just wanted to, they trusted us at that point, and they're just like, I just want it to happen at Saturday at 2 in the morning. I don't need to be up for it. So we gave them the scheduling feature where they can schedule the upgrades as well. So then literally they just click that perform upgrade button. That's the last thing they have to touch.
Does this do like MD5 validation? I'll on
Yes.
the image once it's actually transferred, make sure you didn't have any corruption or anything like that.
Exactly.
So it would be like 5 steps ahead of what most people do today.
Totally.
Yeah, awesome.
In the HA, we handle the entire HA process. So we do all the failover. So no longer would you find out your firewall's in like some unstable state.
Oh, so if you have a cluster, you actually check on it and you do it the correct way to make sure that everything's safe.
HA clusters, not active cluster, but an HA cluster would handle the whole thing.
Awesome.
Yep. So at least a 90% time saver. I mean, it's crazy how much we see we have the data. We know before CDO they're on old versions, with CDO they're on new versions, and they do it like that. FTD. So the migration, obviously, beyond ASA is to start going with next generation firewall. So with FTD, we're able to onboard those devices into CDO, and then the policy is completely managed through CDO as well. So if you're used to FMC, or if you've taken a peek at FDM at all, Firepower Device Manager, this UI looks a lot like that. And so we have consistency. So if you move between on-box or CDO, it should feel the same. But we also have all the same policy capabilities that an FMC has. So I can choose a policy, I can edit it, I can, if I change this to, I don't want to change that to, let me choose it for, I can edit it, all the traditional layer 3, layer 4 capabilities, source destination, but also all the next generation firewall services, URL categories, applications. If I have an identity service hooked in, using CDO to create the rules for user-based or user group-based policies, as well as the traditional IPS signatures that come from Talos. Network AMP, you can manage all that. And then, of course, the logging piece. You can enable logging per rule inside of CDO as well. So all the same capabilities. The one thing we are missing that you get from FMC that you don't get from CDO is the capability of doing a custom snort signature. But that's really the only thing that you can still tune them. You can still tune the rules in CDO. You just can't create a new one yet. That's coming, but you just can't do that yet. And then Meraki. So we're also able to obviously start bringing Meraki devices in. So I have this Meraki device. This is actually my home MX. I can view the policies on that device. So you onboard it with the API key into the dashboard. So CDO is not talking directly to the MX. We're talking to the dashboard, and the dashboard is doing its normal job to talk to the device. So there's no chance of like inconsistency or getting in a weird state between the device and the dashboard. A huge benefit you get from using CDO to also manage your Meraki policies is, as you are aware probably if you have Meraki, is that there's no object capabilities. You have to do everything by IP address or port numbers. With CDO, you gain the advantage of being able to use the same objects that you're using for your ASAs and your FTD devices on your Meraki devices as well. So I can manage things like I have this emergency block list that I have defined on my MXs, I have it defined for my FTDs, and I have it defined for my ASAs. And what CDO can bring to the table now is to start to get to that place where we can have one common policy. Now I have one emergency block list that is being shared across all my devices. For some reason, Santa Clara is out of, but I can share these across all my devices. And now you can see that I have, well, you don't know this, but this is an MX device. Millipetus is an FTD device, and Fresno is an ASA. So now I can edit this in one spot. So now an emergency comes in, block it, shut it down everywhere. Let's go ahead and create a new object for whatever that vulnerability is. So let's call it 12 June. Cisco Live. I'm going to put a value in here and add it and save it. And now all of these devices are getting that update inside of CDO. So when I go back to my devices page, so right now we're running the algorithms in the back end to populate all those configurations. And now when I go back to CDO, I'm going to see that Fresno's out of sync, I'm going to pick this Nashua device will be out of sync in a second. These devices will be out of sync, but I'll be able to have one policy that I'll be able to push out. So within like 30 seconds of getting that alert that I need to block across all my devices, I have now the capability of pushing this change out to 3 different technologies at one time. So now I can just do a deploy all, and all 3, or I could have done all my devices, are going to get that update. So really, CDO is the only place where you can manage your FTDs, your MXs, and your ASAs in one spot, and configure that and organize that and automate that through one location.
Can you also do some of the not-so-policy things, maybe like doing VPN tunnels, or on the MX side, doing the SD-WAN configs, or anything else?
That is a roadmap.
Gotcha.
For FTD, you're going to be able to manage the entire VPN stack, site-to-site, and remote access as well. For ASAs today, you can monitor and view the VPNs and view the configurations on those devices, see if they're configured properly, and we can show where the tunnels are. So we have kind of an image here where you can see what the tunnel status is, as well as what the details are for that tunnel. If it was up and running, if it was let me close that. If it was up and running, you'd be able to see how long it was running for. And you can see what the crypto map is for that tunnel as well. We're bringing back the capability inside of ASA as well to be able to configure and do all the creation of the VPN tunnels too.
What about things like NAT? Like how does it interface with your security policies that also then kind of intersect with NAT policy?
Yep, totally. So I think that this Modesto device has NATs on it. So we give you a little NAT tool. So you can do all the natting that you could do from on the ASAs or FTDs. The Wizard is actually the same for both our FTDs and our ASAs because it's exactly the same technology underneath. So we just give you the same view. So you can view the configurations of the NATs, as well as you can create new NATs in here as well.
Does this extend to the Meraki MXs as well?
Not the Meraki MXs, not today.
Okay.
We've also kind of catered to some of our less experienced users and given them some NAT Wizard. So the thing that everybody wants to do is, I've had this firewall. I need to let the people behind the firewall, get out to the internet. So we created a wizard to enable that for the internal users. We've also created a wizard to kind of show them how they can expose one of their internal servers to the internet, and they can just walk through and use their wizard to build that out with all the objects and everything. So it kind of helps people along a little bit on that process. And then all that stuff is available in the configuration. So once we do it in CDO and the UI, they can look at the config if they want to, if they need to review that as well.
All right, so I just want to make sure I understand just the high level. So really what you're doing is you're orchestrating security policy across devices, but it's a limited subset. It's not a holistic manager for pretty much any particular product. It can potentially replace FTD if you wanted to do greenfield. I'm just thinking there's lots of things that I heard about, like just VPNs. We can't configure it here. You're gonna have to configure that locally. Mm-hmm. NAT, we do it on these devices, but not these devices, and that's okay because that's a huge problem to solve. But I just want to make sure that it gets out there that this is like an overlay tool that does access control, NAT on some devices, those types of things. That's
true.
Yeah.
And we heard that from our customers, especially our ASA customers. So there's lots of things we still have to go back to the command line or the ASDM to do. So we built in this tool called the CLI Tool that allows them to run any command from CDO that they can run from the CLI.
Okay, so we can manage beyond what you have built in from a templating perspective, knowing that that's what we have to build, but it's going to be platform specific. We'd have to know the commands.
Exactly.
We'd have to know that anyway.
You have to know that anyways, right? And we give you the capability of creating macros. So once you know the command, you can build a macro out. We ship some commands. So
macros with variables?
Macros with variables. So
that's the right answer.
I have this disconnect VPN user here. So this is like a simple one with one variable. I want to log off a user. So instead of hunting and pecking and figuring out which firewall to kick that user off, I can just select all my firewalls and log Guy off no matter where he is. We can also do some more complex ones. Like this is the entire workflow to create a site-to-site VPN tunnel.
I
And I-
know so many people who would want this, like right now. Yes, that's a really cool feature.
And we can reuse values in here. So I create, the first variable I create is distant network name, and I reuse that in the crypto map and the natting and all that. So it builds out this entire workflow. You as the expert can make sure that they're using AES 120. They're not negotiating down to DES or anything like that. Like, you just put your best practices right in here. You're no longer hacking up scripts or taking things down from SharePoint. You just build it right into CDO. Everybody has access to it. And now when it comes time to build a tunnel, you just click view parameters, and it's essentially like a wizard. You just start piping in your values that you need. You don't have to worry about, oh, I forgot to put the default route in, or I don't know what the shared key is, or anything like that. It's all right here. You just pump it in. Once it's done, that send button becomes blue. You send it to the device, and you're good.
Great. Learning
And
tool.
all of these are also being audited. So as part of our audit, you'll see not only that it's a CLI, who did the change, what is the change, you can go back. So it's connected to the entire framework.
So key question,
Yep.
all of these parameters, are they manually defined at deployment, or can you populate them from other variables in the database?
You can populate them from an API, but you can't. We don't yet have the capability to pull them in from the, like, I know what you want to do. You want to pull them in from like the IP address of the inside interface or something like that.
Yeah.
We don't do that yet. That's a fairly common request though, but we just don't have that yet.
What about pulling data from this MRI panel?
Yes, you could. Using our API, these are all parameter values in the API call. So it'd just be a comma, 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 and you can pump these in. So
GUI no, API yes.
yeah, totally. Yep.
Perfect. Thank you.
How much sanity checking goes on with the config changes, whether you're typing them in or using a template? So, are you relying on when you deploy it,
Yes.
syntax error comes back, and therefore we roll the change back?
Exactly.
kind of thing?
We do. We haven't built all the technology or logic into CDO. We rely on the device itself. As Guy said, we embrace and extend. So if the device comes back and says, nope, that command was wrong, then that's why we kind of position this a little bit as an expert tool. So you should test it. You shouldn't just go and build it and deploy it to 1,000 devices at one time. But
I was thinking, when you're typing stuff into a field, the chances of fat fingering are quite high. So.
yeah. It would just bear out, and it would stop. It would stop the whole process. It would just.
I mean, that's true. But when you look at the total number of characters up there versus what you're typing in, it dramatically reduces it if you were building it in, in a text. It's not full-scale automation where you're pulling all the data from something else. I agree with that. It's not that, and there needs to be some sanity checking, whether it's in the command line or if you can build in beyond. But it's still better than doing it manually.
I was curious where it was taking place.
Yeah, exactly. And as we see customers using, let's say there's an area that's being used again and again and again, we add it to the product.
Sure,
as part of the UI. So it enabled us, as I said, to react fast.
So we have lots of customers that are using this. They love it, and they ask for more. They said, hey, just this capability, if you can give it to me for my iOS devices, for my switches and routers, I would love it. So we sent an engineer team down the task of enabling the onboarding of iOS devices into CDO as well. So I have that same capability of using the command line interface on my switches and routers. I can do it at scale. We also capture the configuration files for that, so they're also getting the configuration backups, and they can also get all the changelog data from that as well. So we have a toolkit now, and we can start adding new devices at a quicker pace into CDO.
So if I take a config and trying to make sure, what are the scope of the changes I can make to a configuration? Is it just the security objects that you've defined and the NATs and so on? Or can I literally go in and go, I want to add a syslog server to this one?
Yes, you can do that.
Okay. So for the part where you were showing earlier generating a rollback, is that something, again, that's is that exclusive to because you know how to roll back objects and rules? Or is that logic built in again?
Smart cookie. So things that we understand that we're doing through the GUI, when we roll back gently, so we're able to do the deltas.
Yeah.
If you start making changes that are outside of the changes that we are able to do in the GUI, then those become a replace of the configuration. In some cases, like an interface change or something like that, that's a fairly major change. Those would require a copy and replace of the configuration. But things like the syslog server are actually gentle, so those would just be deltas. So, and we let you know, we when you're doing a rollback, if it's going to interrupt your traffic, we put a big button there that says accept it. You know that you're going to drop traffic for a second. So that's we let you know so you aren't just surprised by that occurrence. I think we have 5 more minutes. Is it true? 5?
Yeah.
All right.
Eventing. Yeah.
What was the other thing I want to show? Oh, so we also have forayed into the area of giving visibility into events, as Guy alluded to earlier as well. So with over the last few months and what we've released here this week is the capability of viewing the events that are coming from the FTD devices. They could be sent via CDO to a data lake in the cloud that the CDO is then able to interface with. So I can review, these happen to just be all connection events because I didn't want to do any intrusion or other those kind of events in my own lab. So I'm showing you real live connection events that are happening on this device. But if we go into a lab that happens to have a little more containerized view and has actual connection events and intrusion events, we can start to see that you can use CDO to look at things like intrusion events that are coming from your devices. We have complete filtering, so you can filter on IP addresses, who the initiator was, who the attacker was, things of that nature. And we can start to give you more detailed information about what that event package looks like. And then with Cisco Threat Response, we have integration into that as well. So for instance, if I have an IP address that I want to learn more about. So I can see that CDO or the FTD device is doing its job. There's an intrusion event, it's being blocked. Normally I don't care that much about it because it's blocking it, it's doing its work. But I might also want to see, am I blocked everywhere? I have ASAs located out in some other locations. Are the AMP clients on those locations seeing this event as well? So now I can pivot into CTR and start to see more information about a particular IP address. So very easily, I can go into CTR with context of this IP address, and we'll launch CTR. You'll start to see that it's churning to find out more enrichment data about that IP address as Umbrella seeing it, is AMP seeing it, our other FTD devices seeing it. And then we can filter in and look at the observables, where it's being observed, as well as where it's being, where it's being seen. So if you go into the sightings, you can see all the other different locations that are seeing this and what the disposition is. So then you can start getting that SecOps view that you probably want, that you're using FMC for. You can start seeing that inside of Cisco Threat Response as well.
Definitely works better on a bigger screen.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
When I demo this at
What
home,
you're restricted to.
exactly. Yeah. When I demo it at home, it looks awesome. Yeah. So that's kind of the where we're leading towards with CDO. So
Go back to the slides.
oh,
Let's go to it.
Does anything you mentioned today apply to zone-based firewalling on the ISRs at all?
no.
No, nothing? Okay.
Yeah, our focus, security policies and around our ASAs,
Your true
and
firewalls?
so forth. The true firewalls.
Yeah.
That's our current focus. So, just some key takeaways from my perspective. We've talked about CDO being this centralized, cloud-based policy, highly scalable, fits with both individual customers, but also either managed service providers or partners that manage on behalf of their customers in this environment that enables you to basically manage today ASAs, FTDs, Merakis, all from one place, and enables you to do more. So that's the application itself. If you want to learn more about CDO, you can go to cisco.com/go/CDO, and there you'll be able to get more information from us, and also be able to sign up and get a trial and a tenant that you can start playing with the application. So how easy it is to load your existing devices. Any questions?
Yeah, that's some cool stuff.
Oh, good.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's nice.
Oh, really quick question about the whole MSP partner management thing. Does the Cisco Defense Orchestrator have, how do I put it, multi-tenancy so that I can have customers come in and only see their stuff?
Yes, absolutely. So that's the way CDO is structured. It's totally multi-tenant. Each tenant is totally separated. But if you're the administrator, you can look between those tenants and make sure that each one of them, comply or the changes are being done. So we have some of our, let's say, partners or MSPs. That's the way they operate, and they onboard their customers on using the tool. So absolutely.
Thank you very much.
A good one. Awesome. Sweet. All right. So thank you very much. It was great being here, and hope you enjoyed CDO.